This short little seminar is going to be a very brief introduction to magic. The purpose and the aim of this short presentation is going to be to open our minds to the possibilities that our imagination is capable of. And one of the most important step is the first step, right? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. That is the cliche. And this is going to be our first step. So, in according to research within psychology, most of us are not able to hold more than three ideas at the same time, right? Which is why in academic institutions like universities, you know, the topics and the subjects are given one lesson at a time, one point at a time, and it takes time to process. But that form of unpacking these ideas, are welcomed by the student once they enroll into the program. Um, but what's important is getting people sort of interested in the subject or in the topic. The purpose of this video is more like an infomercial. We're going to be giving you a whole ton of information, introducing you to a whole new world, more than we can chew on, in an effort to open our mind towards the possibility to get us to enroll into some kind of ascension system or initiation system. So let's begin with the magician. So here we have a picture of Gandalf, who is one of the main characters in the great epic fairy tale novel, The Lord of the Rings, written by J.R.R. Tolkien, one of the great literary geniuses of our time, our modern time, right? And probably the greatest of all time, many will argue. Um, so this is an archetypal image. This idea of the wise old man, the magician, appears in every tradition, in every story. There's a hero in every story, but this hero needs help from someone who has sort of discovered the mysteries of this world and other worlds, which give the hero an advantage. And this is the idea of the magician. The magician comes to the scene and helps the individual who doesn't know that they're a hero. So, for example, in the story of Harry Potter, you have Harry Potter, who he's the boy that doesn't know he's a magician, right? That is how the author J.K. Rowling, that's how she presents it. It's a story about a boy who doesn't know he is a wizard, right? And now I'm not too familiar with that story, but it follows the same narrative that you have this adolescent child, and he grows and develops into becoming a full-on magician. It's the same in Lord of the Rings with Frodo. So here's what we have to find. We have to find the magician. We have to go out and roam the world in an effort to find someone like this. Now they appear in stories. The characters are different, and but it seems that they only exist in nonfiction. Like, where are they in real life? Well, in real life, you find artists. So, for example, you have, let's go over here to an artist page by the name of Armin van Buren. Right? Is it this one? No. Armin van Buren, right? He is a magician, right? Now, the way that he employs his magic is through music, right? He started off as a trance producer, but as he became more and more popular, he started getting into more dance music and pop stuff. So here's an example of someone who is a magician, but he's not a teacher. He presents his magic to the world, as music is, and he's considered an entertainer, right? He's an So here's an example of a magician who is an entertainer, right? He's not a teacher; he's an entertainer, which is a limitation for certain artists, right? But everything has stages, and you know th- there's different roles to play amongst different individuals, which is why it takes an army, right? It takes an army. Um, but here's an example of a someone who is a magician who does wonders with his presentations. Now, particularly nowadays, in particular in the music world, in pop music, it's all about visuals, right? Big stages, great visuals, but this sense of a deeper connection, which something like this represents, right? And he's this seems like a very spiritual image right here, right? Now this one is very contemplative, going inward into the darkness of the mind and discovering, well, what is the future for a state of trance, or his company. Um, so this is an example, right? An example of someone who does magic, but he's not a teacher. He doesn't teach you how to do magic, although he has created some tutorials on how to create trance music. So he kind of does teach the magic of music production, right? So Gandalf, right? So he's a form of Gandalf. He's working his magic and he's taking care of his community. Now, what we want to do is we want to find someone who is a teacher, who is a magician, an esoteric teacher. In the Buddhist traditions, these are called lamas. So let's go over here and look for Buddhist lamas, right? So here's a clear example of a magician in the Buddhist tradition. And so here's the Dalai Lama, who is a spiritual leader, right? He's the leader of the Tibetan community. So he's a magician, right? And the way that he's working his magic is more political, right? Going around, having conversations with political figures. Here, it seems to be in the presence with the leader of Russia, right? I haven't actually seen these images. So, he goes around, and his philosophy is quite simple. It's kindness, right? He says that his religion is kindness. Now, that is a very basic idea presented at a world level. So that is the way that he's doing his magic, is by spreading kindness to the world, so that the world can become less toxic and less controversial. All right, so that's a magician. Now that's a magician within Eastern philosophy. What we want to do is we want to find modern magicians, right? Someone that is more compatible with the ways of our life. Somebody that is a Western style magician. The Dalai Lama, he's nice, he's cute, but he's not a part of our culture. We need to find somebody in European or American, that serves that same purpose. Now they're very difficult to find. That's the thing. Is like we find them in fiction, we find them in mythology, but to find them in actual real life, they're very difficult. I mean, you really have to really look hard to find anyone that's remotely close to it. The closest thing that we come to is authors, finding authors who are writers, and most magicians are writers. But what we want to do is find somebody in real life. So here's an example of a real life magician, someone who is real, who still lives, who still exists, and is doing the works of a magician. So I came across this actually fairly recently. Um, let me see if I have a here. Sorry, Michael Lamb, right? He's a hermetic magician. Um, his what he does is he teaches this stuff. So just like Armin van Buren, he's a magician, but he expresses his magic through music. And the Dalai Lama, he goes around spreading the very basic principle of kindness. And he is also a teacher. Um, this is someone that is a bit more Western. He teaches the same ideas, these same universal ideas, um, which open our minds and opens our imagination. So here at least we're getting closer to home. Now I just recently came across him, maybe like a couple of maybe like I don't know 3 months ago, less than 3 months ago. But I am familiar with his tradition. You know he studied the same tradition that I've been studying for at least for like a decade, which is the Hermetic tradition of Franz Bardon, right? And the Hermetic tree of life and alchemy, ideas which are universal, right? So the same ideas that are inspiring him or that have inspired him for the last 30 years, I have already been acquainted with. So that this is why I kind of like see, okay, here's somebody who is at least close to what I'm doing, right? Um, so the reason I'm presenting this is so here's a clear example of someone who is a magician in real life. Now he doesn't have a huge following. He has his website, and he operates, I think, out of in Thailand, right? And he goes around giving 10-day retreats. People fly over to be in the presence of someone who has been practicing these kinds of ideas for 10 years, and he teaches the basics, right? So he has like multiple courses that he teaches. So here's an example of a real life magician, right? And this is an example of how the magic is transmitted is in workshops. So this is what is you would consider a workshop, where a group of individuals who are attracted to these kinds of ideas find the teacher. As they say, when the students are ready, the teacher appears. So, like in my opinion, in order to be an esoteric teacher, you have to be doing this for at least 10 years. And then, after that, you find people who have been doing it for 30 or 40 years. So in my case, I've been doing this stuff for well over 10 years. I would even say 15 years, a solid 15 years of being dedicated to these mysteries, right? Now, here's an example of someone who's been doing it twice as long, 30 years, right? So, but like I said, these people are difficult to find. So this is what essentially you are looking for is a mentor, a teacher. Now, in the Buddhist tradition, to go back to the Dalai Lama, in the Buddhist tradition, the way that they teach it is the first thing they got to do is find a guru, a master, right? So, for example, here is the Karmapa. He's considered a Buddhist master. Within that tradition, that is the first thing that the philosophy teaches is go find a master and bow down to the feet of the master. Now that there's a reason for that, right? In a Western tradition, we don't bow down to any master, right? It's like it's not compatible with our Western way of doing anything. So in our tradition, what we have to do is find a teacher. So someone like Michael, as you see, people are not bowing down and worshiping the teacher. It's more like an academic style setting. So this is very typical of societies like the Theosophical Society, or even in America, you have the Philosophical Research Society in LA, which is embedded within the spirit of Manly P. Hall, right? Who he's also another. In fact, let's see if we can find some images of So he this is an esoteric teacher who taught in America, and he's considered one of the great North American esoteric teachers. And here's his book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, which is essentially like, you know, like 50 essays on ideas that he came across. So he at least introduced these kinds of ideas to an American culture, and then start a new tradition, right? So he's an example of another magician, right, within the occult tradition. So there are various different. I'll go back over here real quick. So finding the magician is the first step. Now, if you listen to some of his talks, he when he speaks, it's like it's from another world. It sounds very mythical, and if the minds that are entertaining those ideas find it magical, it opens their minds and their hearts, then there is a connection. So let's look back to the music world. So in the music world, so how can you apply this kind of stuff? So let's say you take the courses, you take Introduction to Hermetic Magic, and the Kabbalah, and however whatever other courses there are. So here's a sort of promo for one of his 10-day retreats, which is based on the Tree of Life. So let's say you take these courses. Okay, what do you do with it now? Like, what's the practical application? Well, the practical application is that, well, now you live in reality. Now you live in a real. Can I expand that? You see reality more clearly than those who are asleep. So here's another flyer for these events. This is very typical of the tradition of offering these kinds of teachings. But then it's like, what can you use them for? Well, you can be an artist. You could be an Armin van Buuren, right? And apply within music. Although he's not explicitly teaching spiritual ideas, but within the music community, there's actually a trend of musicians being very spiritual. So an example is we'll step into him in a minute, is this group, Prana. Now, these are an American music producers. They were first, trance producers within the same sort of genre as Armin van Buuren, known as tritonal. But then, they came through a spiritual awakening, in particular him. I think his name is Chad. He went off to the East and studied Eastern mysticism, and his mind was transformed as this image, represents, staring at the calm waters, right? So the mind has been stilled, and what this image represents is that they have gone back to sort of nature, right? And this is the essential idea of Eastern traditions, is going back to the magic of nature, which is beautiful, right? As you can see in this image. So once you study that, you can, if you are in the music world, either in music or literature, then you can present art that reflects that. Once you go through a spiritual transformation, like this fellow over here. Now, I'm not pointing him out because I kind of like know a little bit more about him. But they obviously he seems like he has gone through some kind of transformation as well, right? But him, he's actually becoming a teacher now. He has, not only does he release music, and not only is he a successful record producer, but I think he's trying to step into the role of becoming a yogic teacher within, I think, the Vedanta tradition, right? So this is a practical application that once you are transformed through the teachings of whatever master it is that you found, whether it's in the Eastern Buddhist tradition or Vedanta or the Western Hermetic tradition or the occult tradition or esoteric Christianity, whatever school or genre it is that you go through, that your mind is transformed, you come back to the ordinary world with a different view, and now you have a mission, which is to share the bliss that is within the mind if you train it properly. And the first place that you can start is with music. So they started this musical group called Prana, which is a bit more contemplative, more chill, more progressive, and they're finding success with this brand. So that's an example of making things practical. And I think what's interesting is that he's already, this duo is already successful within the music industry, and I think that they're trying to expand to be more of a spiritual movement. So I think that's quite unique. There are not many North American artists that are kind of like this dedicated, at least within the electronic dance music scene. So this is one of the few. Now, within the same sort of Eastern tradition, you have, so this is these guys are musicians. So now a teacher within that's close to that would be this guy. Now this is someone that I've been following. He teaches Kundalini yoga. Now I'm not into Hindu mysticism or Kundalini yoga, but I'm more into the Western esoteric tradition. But individuals like this, are interesting, and they pique my imagination. So he's actually a teacher, as you can see. So he's that's his thing, and as he states, right off the back in his landing page, I help people navigate their spiritual awakening, or I help people navigate through their spiritual awakening. That would be my edit. So he's a teacher, right? He is and that's what he does, and he's trying to develop that online brand of helping people awaken. And the way that he does it is by so the way that he presents his magic, he presents these YouTube videos, which are like 15 to 20-minute videos, and he's very charismatic and interesting and entertaining, and he helps people navigate through their spiritual awakening. So these are practical applications that you can use. Now, finding success within as a teacher is quite difficult. It's a lot easier to sort of find it as a musician, right? Because music has kind of like a very instant impact, right? And then the idea is for those who are in power, like Armin van Buuren, to sort of acknowledge what it is happening, and then offering them a platform to really spread their ideas by signing them to the record label. But of course, they have Tritonal or Prana, they have their own record label. So anyways, this is just some points of what happens once you sort of find the master. Once you find Gandalf, you take the courses, you have the transformation, and then you come back to a society transformed, which is the standard teaching of someone like Joseph Campbell. His idea of the hero's journey. So I think this will be enough for this mini seminar. So in conclusion, within the world of magic, the imagination, our minds are very powerful, and in order for us to fully develop our creative capacities, we have to find somebody like Gandalf, someone who can teach us the way, who can teach the method, so that we can open our minds, open our hearts, and thereby be more creative, more productive, and inspire others, and particularly the next generation who have yet to found Gandalf or the Lord of the Rings. So this concludes this seminar, and I hope that it has been illuminating to those out there who come across these kinds of ideas.